Hey, before I get into the main video, just giving you guys a little update. I tried Spear along with Musket, but unfortunately all the CCs on Spear were not 2 seconds or longer, so unfortunately I was not able to get it to synergize with Musket the way it was able to synergize with Sword and Board. I know a lot of people were asking me to try out Spear to see if I can get it to work, and unfortunately it did not. So the rest of this video is just going to be the build concerning Sword and Board and Musket. I did make some changes to Sword and Board, which you will see in a second. Thanks, guys. What's going on, you guys? Bring your friends here. The open beta for New World is over, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a build update. So there's been some minor changes in the build. Before, when I was running Sword and Board, I was running pretty much all defender skills with Shield Bash, Shield Rush, and Defiant Stance. But after, like, I'm making this build primarily as like a duelist, and from what I've gathered in the duels I've played so far on the open beta and just trying different things, Shield Rush and Defiant Stance aren't really that good with the build for several reasons. For one, with Defiant Stance, it's very, very hard to cast this skill pretty much anywhere in a duel, regardless if you're running away, offensively, defensively, it doesn't really matter. Like, from what I have experienced with Defiant Stance, the amount of reduced incoming damage is not necessarily worth. Like, you take just as much damage while casting Defiant Stance as opposed to the damage that you would be taking as a reduction after it was over despite the heal. So I don't really think this really does much. Like, the damage you take almost cancels out the effect of Defiant Stance entirely. So for what I'm trying to run, I would not recommend Defiant Stance. Same with Shield Rush. Like, basically it's just how is the best way to gap close and uh, successfully hit Shield Bash without taking as much damage as possible. And Shield Rush did not really complement that well with Shield Bash just because it knocks them back. So there's really no good way for Shield Rush to complement with Shield Bash and then going to Musket, throwing down your trap, and then just doing massive damage. So I have chose Leaping Strike and Reverse Stab. Leaping Strike is a great for a couple of reasons. One, it's good for disengaging. It's also good for engaging. It does an incredible amount of damage if a target falls below 30% health, so that also works as well. Also with Reverse Stab is very helpful in duels just because of grit. Reverse Stab now has grit, making the attack unstoppable. So basically the combo that I would use in some cases, I would Leaping Strike in. If the attack works, great. If not, no big deal. I can essentially gap close without having to waste my dodges. Going into Reverse Stab, if Reverse Stab hits, it essentially staggers them, even though it doesn't say in the skill that it staggers them, giving you enough time to hit off Shield Bash, and then going, throwing in a trap at their feet, shooter stance, and then just blowing them, the fucking Kingdom Come. So, in terms of both of these weapon sets, these are all both maxed out, and I'll just explain the stats to you. So, Sturdy Grip, stamina damage is reduced by 15% when blocking a melee attack with a shield. Defensive Training, when you block an attack, you gain 10% fortify for 5 seconds. High Grip, stamina damage is reduced by 15% when blocking a ranged attack with a shield. Stamina damage is pretty important because if you're being hit while you're blocking, you're essentially stunned, and that just gives the enemy an opportunity just to do Jigadam on you. So obviously reducing the amount of stamina damage with Defender is pretty good from all sources. Elemental Resistance, reduced damage taken by magical types by 10%. I think we talked about Defensive Training already. Fortitude, holding a shield, current and max health are increased by 10%. We take Recuperation essentially just because of pots and effects that you would gain from food and potions. Even though, I mean, in some uh, like one-on-one duels, obviously for honor's sake, most people won't take pots, but some people will. So in the duels that I'll show you later on, I basically take pots if my opponent pops it first, but if not, I don't. But in a World v World situation, if you come across one guy, recuperation would in fact help because obviously they're not going to play fair, so you might as well take advantage of the fact then you're going to get increased healing and regen increased by 10% when it comes to your pots and heal over time. And then obviously Shield Bash, uh, you know, deals 50% weapon damage and stuns. The stun is what's important. The weapon damage isn't really. Increased threat, and then doesn't really matter. And then concussive bash, shield bash stun, duration increased by 1 second. So it's just like a little extra pad to give you time to throw your trap and get like 5 to 10 feet away before you open up with shooter stance. Going into Swordmaster, Achilles Heel, the final attack in your light attack chain causes a 20% slow for 2 seconds. Slow reduces movement speed, obviously. Counterattack, when you block an attack, gain a stack of Empower, granting 3% damage. Increase for 5 seconds, can stack up to 5 times. Leaping Strike, this is obviously your gap close or disengage ability. Leap 6 meters and deal 135% weapon damage. And then obviously does Jigadam if the target is below 30% health, which deals 50% more damage. Critical Precision, on critical, gain 20% haste for 5 seconds. Haste increases your movement speed. Precision, sword critical strike chance increased by 10%. Opportunist, deal 10% more damage to slowed foes. Confidence, while health is full, deal 15% more damage. And then obviously reverse stab, a stab attack that deals 175% weapon damage. And unstoppable stab with grit, making the attack unstoppable. So grit is very important, especially if reverse stab, even though it doesn't say, it essentially staggers your opponent, giving you enough time to shield bash. So say if they're doing like a CC on you and you're out of stamina and you cannot get out of it any other way, reverse stab is essentially a good way to counter that, because since your attack can't be stopped, you're going to stagger them despite them doing like a spear sweep on you, for example. So if you know they're about to sweep you, you have no endurance, you hit reverse stab, you stagger them instead into shield bash, you swap to musket, throw down the trap, and you start doing massive damage. So reverse stab is a really good counter ability for whatever CC your enemy might be trying to throw at you, simply because of the grit. So going into Trapper, you have traps, obviously. Throw a trap that lasts 20 seconds. When triggered, it causes the target to be rooted, immobilizing them for 3 seconds. Salt in the Wounds, 10% increased damage to targets below 30% health. Weaken defense, increase the stamina from standard slot or shot steal to enemies blocking with shields by 50, and deal 10% of armor penetration to targets that aren't blocking with a shield. Obviously, when it comes to stamina, like I said, if you're able to deplete somebody's stamina, it's really easy to basically initialize a combo via either traps or swapping to a sword and board, hitting them with shield bash, and then throwing traps at your feet, whatever way you want to work it. But yeah, stamina is very important to deplete, especially with weakened defense. Hustle, after a dodge, gain haste, increasing movement speed by... Obviously that's wrong. I think it was like 5%, 10%, something like that for 3 seconds. Energy Burst, attacking the target with an active debuff, restores 5 stamina. Scent of Blood, this is pretty like one of the staples in the Trapper build, in my opinion. Regen 100% of weapon damage done as health when dealing damage to trap targets. So say, like, if you're trying to play the sustain game with Trapper with this build, say, for example, if you or the opponent does not have any food or potions, which is highly unlikely, but that being said, when it comes to Scent of Blood, if the duel is prolonged just for an absurd amount of time, if you're able to keep up the sustain, you will eventually kill them. Like, the amount of sustain you get back through Scent of Blood will basically be a battle of attrition, and with this, you're almost guaranteed to win the longer the duel persists. Tactical Reload. Dodging reloads the musket, can only trigger once every 6 seconds, which is very good, and synergizes pretty well with Critical Reload. Landing 3 headshots within 5 seconds of each other grants an instant reload. So you have lots of ways to get out plenty of rounds in a short amount of time. Kick them when they're down, deal 10% extra damage to targets with an active crowd control status effect, slows, roots, and stun. And then last but not least, on the Trapper side, Lethal Combo. Increases musket damage by 20% against targets affected by Trapper Tree status effect, which obviously I'm basing the whole build around. So it's lots of damage stacking with Lethal Combo, and then just setting yourself up for Sharpshooter and etc. So going in the Sharpshooter, Critical Reload, like I said, Landing 3 headshots within 5 seconds of each other grants an instant reload. With shooter stance, it's pretty easy to get those 3 headshots off, especially if somebody's trapped. So shooter stance, players enter a shooting aim stance to enhance shooting performance. Shots deal 100% weapon damage. While in stance, mobility is reduced to 0 and reload time is reduced by 75%. Mode will exit after 3 shots. So as I said, the combo in which you try to get is shield bash, swap, throw a trap at their feet, shooter stance essentially in their face, and you just start unloading, which procs critical reload. And then afterwards, they'll probably try and attack you. You dodge, critical reload activates, giving you another instant shot. So it's just a lot of damage in a short amount of time. When it comes to powder burn, overload a musket with gunpowder, causing the next shot to deal 100% weapon damage and cause a burn status effect that deals 20% weapon damage per second for 9 seconds. Does not stack or combine with other overload shots. So I choose powder burn over, like, say, stopping power, just because of the fact that it does quite a bit of damage over a long period of time and you don't have to worry about it. It's just you shoot it and forget it. When it comes to stopping power, I get the knockback is nice, but I would rather have just more damage as opposed to more CC, like the way I'm like playing the build anyways. Like they're already going to be stunned, and I use powder burn essentially at the very start of a duel. Like you just powder burn your gun, shoot them, and then you're already getting a nice weapon damage, like 110%, and then the powder burn is just going to keep ticking the entire duel. So moving on, called shot resupply, standard attack headshots reduce all musket ability cooldowns by 10%. And heightened precision. While aiming successful hits with a musket, grant a stackable 2.5% damage increase. This effect ends when player stops aiming down sight for more than 5 seconds, passes in between shots. So the way I play it, I always aim. I never really use, like, say, the hip fire through greater accuracy, so there's really no point to spec into something like that. But with heightened precision, you're getting a good damage increase every time you aim down sights, and it's stackable, so there's really no reason not to take this. As I said, this build is specifically for dueling. If I was going anything like long range, I would invest into like sniper, ballistic advantage, which removes the damage fall off from standard musket shots. Hit your mark, for example, that's long, long distance away. But this build is essentially you're going to be really close with your opponent. Like you want them to get close so you can set up shield bash, get the traps, and then start unloading with shooter stance. If it was anything else, obviously the build would be different significantly. And yeah, I mean when it comes to the tree, I just took as much dexterity as I could, and then 15 constitution just because of the health consumables being 20% stronger. The notables you get from dexterity are 5% chance to critical hit, 5% piercing damage, and 20%, well, that's haste for 3 seconds after skinning, that doesn't matter. Dodging costs 10% less stamina. You could, if you wanted just to go full balls to the wall, you could just go full dex, which would give you another 10% bonus to backstab and headshot damage. I am full light armor when it comes to... I haven't really picked out all this shit yet just because, one, I've never gotten that high before. This is just kind of all theoretical of what I would take so far. But in terms of your gear, you're all light gear, and then you're taking a shield. So you're still in the light armor category, which is while wearing full light armor, your dodge is a quick dodge roll that covers a lot of distance. You deal 20% bonus damage. Personally, I would always go light just because when it comes to the dodge roll, you can stow weapon at the end of a dodge roll, essentially making your dodge roll seamless. So you can actually use it as a form of disengage if you dodge roll twice in a row, stow weapon, and then you're just off to the races. When it comes to normal or heavy, you can't really kite effectively at all when it comes to normal or heavy, so I tend to stick away from that at all costs and just always go light and then just throw a shield on to still stay in that light armor category. The rest of the footage will basically be all of the duels and PvP I encountered on New World Beta Weekend, since you guys asked for me to get a lot more footage the first time around, and I have granted you your wish. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below after you see the duels, or just what you think about the build in general. I'm Countless BringYourFriends, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Yeah.